Notre Dame fans, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. It is Thursday. My name is Brian Driscoll. I'm the publisher at irishbreakdown.com. Today, I'm going to be doing a solo show because Vince is a little under the weather today. So this is just going to be me. You're going to have to just deal with me today. So we are going to really break down the Notre Dame Navy matchup. I'm going to get into sort of who Navy is, how to defend the triple option. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll get into keys to victory. And we'll make predictions. And then I'm going to, since it's just me today, we don't have the same time constraints as we normally do. So I will try to get into some questions during and after the show that you all might have. But first, I want to dive into the Notre Dame Navy matchup. And the first thing that we have to discuss when looking at this matchup is sort of a what's at stake for Notre Dame. And I think this is a big opportunity for Notre Dame. And look, Navy's bad, right? And so it's a big opportunity for Notre Dame, but it's also a game that, in my opinion, could all but eliminate Notre Dame from the playoff race. The reality is, whether Brian Kelly wants to, realizes this or not, or wants to admit this or not, it's Notre Dame's next 4 wins. At least 3 of them have to be blowouts, and it is so obvious from the committee's rankings with no 7-1 SMU and no 7-1 Houston that the committee has zero respect for the AAC, and of course with Cincinnati being ranked 6th despite being undefeated and having beat Notre Dame. This is the second AAC opponent you're going to face if you're Notre Dame. You have to beat them, and you have to beat them convincingly. And, when you listen to comments from the committee and they talk about how Cincinnati struggled with Navy and how, Notre Dame only had a 17-13 lead over North Carolina at halftime, which was really an absurd comment in my opinion. And applying a standard to one school but not to the other, it was pretty silly, but that's what they're looking at. So this game has to be a convincing win for Notre Dame. It has to be a convincing 60-minute win, and that means Notre Dame has to come out and play well. So it's not just about beating Navy. I mean, if Notre Dame can't beat Navy, they've got major problems because this is not a good Navy team at all, and they're going to have to be able to figure it out and go at them. And we'll dive into how exactly Notre Dame can do that. But that really is what's at stake. It's not a deep, thoughtful thing. It's not a situation where there's any deep insight into it. You have to beat Navy, and you have to beat Navy convincingly. If Notre Dame can do that, they'll have a shot to continue to rise up the rankings, because there's a couple games this weekend that could get real interesting for teams ranked ahead of Notre Dame. And we'll have some of that. We'll have predictions for those games, and we'll have tomorrow on Friday, depending on when you're listening to this. On Friday, we'll be releasing sort of a who to root for type of article. That'll be a new thing now that the playoff rankings have come out about, games to watch. I mean, it's obviously you always root against the teams ahead of you, but, I don't need to waste time talking about the Michigan-Indiana game or Alabama against somebody that they're going to slaughter. It's more about picking some games each week that maybe could be interesting to watch, and maybe we could see an upset. So we'll dive into those type of things. We'll get into that conversation, and that'll be tomorrow. And if you want to ask about it, we can always talk about it during the mailbag tomorrow. But we'll definitely have an article about that at irishbreakdown.com as well. So I want to begin talking about the Navy offense, and it's really interesting. So we're just going to kind of just do an overview of both sides of the ball, what they do, who to look out for, and when I get into the keys to the game, I'll get into sort of a how to stop the triple option conversation. From my experience, having played against the triple option, having coached in 2 seasons in the triple option offense, having played sort of an option offense my last year in college. Have a unique outlook on it. And of course, I've coached on teams where we had to defend the triple option. Probably the first or second biggest win of my career was a playoff game against a triple option team. So have a lot of experience with it. And I think there are certain principles that go into beating the option week after, year after year. It doesn't really matter the alterations and changes that they make. But, when you first look at this Navy team and this specific Navy team, I think the reason this team has struggled so much, and when you look at the numbers, it's, they're not a good team. I mean, it's as simple as that. And the big reason why is their offense. Their offense has really struggled this season. Their defense isn't very good either, if we're being honest. But the big problem for this team has been their offense. They don't move the ball. They don't score. They've been pretty decent at controlling the clock, but their offense is just not is not good. And the biggest thing is they've been really bad at throwing the football this year. And I'm just going to kind of go over some of their rankings this season and just kind of give into some context of how much this offense is struggling. So, first of all, when you look at it from a total point of view, they're averaging 18.1 points per game, and they're averaging 283 total yards per game and 4.1 yards per play. They rank 121st nationally in scoring, 126th in total offense, 129th, tied for last in yards per play. They rank 96th in red zone offense. They rank 125th in touchdown percentage, and they rank 109th in third down offense, which normally Navy's pretty good there. Their rushing offense, they're only rushing for 224 yards per game. Now, for most teams, that's a pretty good day, but when you look at what Navy has done in recent years, it's really bad. Now, it's an improvement over what they did last year when they were just awful. Navy went 3-7 last year. But you look at the last time Navy was good, 2019, they rushed for 360 and a half yards per game. The year before that, they were at 276.5. Not a great Navy team. The year before that, 351.4. The year before that, 310.1. The year before that, 326.7. You're getting the point. So 224 is not a great number. They've had 3 games where they rushed for over 300 yards. They went for 337 in the opener against Marshall, a 49-7 loss. And then they went for 348 against UCF, a win. And they went for 302 against Tulsa, a win. They were held under 200 yards by every other opponent other than Houston, who gave up 202. They were 36 against Air Force, 177 against SMU, 198 against Memphis in a loss, and 192 against Cincinnati. And the yards per attempt numbers were really bad. Their last 3 losses against SMU, Memphis, and Cincinnati, they averaged 3.3, 3.1, and 2.9 yards per rushing attempt. You get into why. I think Navy's got a tough, scrappy offensive line. It's not a real big group. It's not a vintage Navy offensive line, but it's a good offensive line. It's a very short offensive line. Navy in the past has gotten a lot bigger, especially at tackle, and I think that's helped their offense. They are 6'2", 282, 6'2", 269, 6'2", 318, 6'2", 280, and 6'1", 280 across the board. Much smaller group, but what it allows them to do is they play really low. They come off the line really low. They play with very good pad level, and they play hard. They're just not as talented as some of the teams that they've had in the past. So I think that is kind of something that's hurt them. But the primary reason that they're not as good as they've been in the past is their quarterback is not anywhere close to the quarterbacks they've had. This is still, the triple option is still very much a quarterback-driven offense. It starts with the quarterback, then it goes to the fullback, then the offensive line, then it's the slots and the receivers. Those guys are sort of plug and play. And I don't know if I've ever said, boy, that triple option team's not good because they don't have really good slot backs. I mean, your slot backs are basically making plays because of your scheme and because teams are so focused on stopping your quarterback and your fullback. And that's really a big key to this. And they just don't have the playmakers or quarterback. I mean, when you look at their starting quarterback, I was looking at his numbers the other day. It's really like I was shocked at where his numbers are. Their starting quarterback is only averaging 85.8 yards per game. Now, that's not rushing yards per game. That's total yards per game. He's played in 6 games, and if you kind of take 85.8 and project that over 13 games, that's barely 1,000 yards of total offense when you consider that Malcolm Perry a couple years ago had over 2,000 rushing yards just by himself. It's not good. So that's really been a big problem for Navy in their last, really just for them all season. And that's what makes this as not a really dangerous Navy team. A dangerous Navy team is this is what his rushing numbers have been this year. He went for 1.1 against Marshall. This is the quarterback. 2.7 against UCF. 2.2 against Southern Miss, SMU, 1.7 against Memphis, 1.1 against Cincinnati, and then 3.6 in the win over Tulsa that they just had. And Tulsa's not good. Tulsa also lost to UC Davis this season, which is a 1AA team. So Again, we can talk about Navy's dangerous and all those type of things. This is just not a good Navy football team. It's not. This is not a good Navy football team, and this is a team that Notre Dame needs to be able to beat convincingly because they just don't have the offense that they've had in recent seasons. And at the end of the day, that's ultimately what matters. Now, they are a team because of the offense that they play that you have to be disciplined against, and you can't make the mistakes that allow them to creep back in the ball game. And when you look at the games they've played this year, the competitive games they've played, a lot of times it's mistakes that lead them to being in the game. And Cincinnati had drop passes, penalties, not being disciplined on defense and just giving up a big reverse play. The quarterback forcing balls into coverage at the 3-yard line. That was more about Cincinnati not handling what Navy does well than it was about Navy being an improved team. When you look at the SMU game, they played SMU tough. Well, a big part of that was because the quarterback's scrambling around. He's got the ball hanging down here. He gets hit. Ball goes out. Diego, I'm not going to say his last name because I don't want to get flagged by YouTube, but really good linebacker, one of the best linebackers they've had in a long time. But he picks it up and runs it back, 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. You avoid those types of plays, and all of a sudden you're being successful. So Navy's going to try to do some things that, give you problems because they know they don't have the talent, but this is just not a normal Navy team. And it's a team that Notre Dame should handle easily, and the offense is a big part of that. Let's talk about the Navy defense. They're small. This is not a very big defense. When you look at the Navy depth chart, which we have at irishbreakdown.com, you look at their front, they're 3 down linemen, and they'll actually line up. They kind of have it listed as sort of a 3 down team. They'll line up and play 4 a lot, and they're at times it'll look a lot like Notre Dame's look, the 3 down, and then the 4th guy kind of walked up with his hand in the ground. So you'll see some of that, and that's going to be a big part of what Navy does. They're going to throw a lot of different looks at you. Just give me 1 second here real quick. Normally I can take drink breaks when Vince is talking, but obviously today I can't do that. So when you look at the Navy defense, they're small and they're very aggressive. And that's something that Notre Dame is going to have to handle. We're going to learn a lot about the Notre Dame offensive line in this game, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because when you look at Navy, they know they're small. They know they're undersized. They know they're not real talented. And so what they do is they try to create problems for you with the pressures. And so they're going to line up with all types of different looks, 3 down, 4 down. They're going to show off coverage. They're going to come up and press. They're going to bring a lot of twists and stunts. They just don't come off the ball and just kind of play ball. They're going to twist and stunt all game. They're going to bring linebacker pressures. They're going to bring safety pressures. They had a really nice run stunt early against Cincinnati where they brought a safety from distance. They ran a twist, and a safety comes from distance, just blows up the run for a 6-yard loss. And that is something that Notre Dame has struggled with all season. We didn't see a ton of that from North Carolina. We saw almost none of that from USC. So Notre Dame hasn't been pressed in that regards. They will get stressed in that regards a lot in this game because they're going to mix up their looks and they're going to bring pressures from all over. That puts a lot of stress on the offensive line. It puts a lot of stress on the running backs, and it puts a lot of stress on Jack Cohn. Now, that's the negative. The positive is if you have a good game plan against it and your offensive line and quarterback play with poise and are disciplined, you can shred it. And that's obviously a big part of it. But a big thing in this game is going to be you have to be assignment sound up front when you look at the offensive line. That's a big key because, again, this is not a super talented Navy team. They've got one linebacker that I really like, Diego, number 54. They've got a really small corner named Glenn. What's his first name? Give me a second. Jamal Glenn. He's listed at 5'11". He doesn't look 5'11". But he plays a lot of their he plays field corner is what he's listed as, but I see him in the boundary a lot. He played in the boundary a lot against Cincinnati. really smart kid, comes up aggressively. He'll give up short completions, but then he'll come up and rally and tackle. And that's really what Navy's trying to do defensively is they're trying to force you to get the ball out quick. They play a lot of off coverage. They'll close quickly on the ball. They're pretty good tacklers. I think that's one thing I like about this defense is I think they tackle pretty well. But they're trying to bait you into those quick throws. And to a degree, you need to take that, take that 6-yard gain on first or second down. But then also, as we'll get into some of the keys, is you have to find ways to then exploit them for some big play opportunities. But a disciplined team can really shred them, can really rip them because you'll find those creases in the run game. You'll find those big plays down the field. And that's going to be a big key for Notre Dame is you're going to have a good scheme, and then you have to execute that scheme. So that's going to be a big part of this game plan for Notre Dame when you look at how they need to be prepared for this Navy offense or Navy defense. All right, so let's get into keys to victory for Notre Dame. So we're going to begin with the Navy offense, the keys for the Notre Dame defense against the Navy offense. And I write an article every year. I didn't do it this year because I've already got it on the site, and we'll talk about it in the show because it doesn't change. But essentially, for Notre Dame's defense, there are, to me, 6 keys to stopping Navy. And the sixth one and the first one are very similar. But number one, be disciplined, be diverse, and be disruptive. Essentially, this is what that means. Number one, you have to be disciplined. You cannot freelance against Navy. You can't say, well, hey, I'm supposed to take the fullback, but I think the quarterback has the ball. Let me go to him instead. Because then the fullback's going to be running right up the middle untouched, right? If you have the B gap, you got to hit the B gap, and you got to hit the B gap hard. You have to be diverse. If you just line up in the same defense every day, every play, and every snap, the D tackle has the same job, the D end has the same job, the outside linebacker has the same job, the safety has the same job. Navy will scheme it, and Navy will be able to make plays. They're going to know where you are. They know they've got all types of plays. So they're going to run the triple option, obviously. They'll run double option, which is basically faking the fullback dive and pulling and getting outside. They are going to run dive, which looks like triple option, but it's just dive. They'll run traps. They'll run counters. They'll run counter option. They will run plays that look like option but aren't. They'll run a tight, like a really just right up the centers behind triple option. They'll run more of like a mid-zone type of triple option. And they'll run tosses. They'll run reverse. I mean, it's not just one off. If you want to just line up and do one thing, they're going to have plenty of things to do to attack that. So you have to be diverse. And diverse doesn't always have to be where you line up. You can have some consistency from a lining up standpoint. But what you have to do within that is you have to be willing to be diverse from a who has what responsibility kind of thing. And that's going to be a big key to defending this Navy offense. So obviously the last part is being disruptive. And I think this is one, and then my sixth key, so I'll just kind of give it now, is you have to attack the Navy option. I think one of the mistakes that I think teams make a lot with Navy is they get so afraid of making mistakes and not being assignment correct that they will end up just kind of being passive and allowing Navy to kind of really get rolling with their fakes and with their reads and those type of things. And that's a big mistake against Navy. You cannot do that against Navy. If you are not aggressive and you allow him to ride his fakes out and things like that, then what's going to happen to you is you're just flat out going to give up big plays. You're just going to get gashed. I mean, it's going to be 5 yards, 6 yards. And then that one time somebody makes a mistake, it's a big play. So you have to be aggressive. And the reason you have to be aggressive is, number one, you don't want to let the lineman get to the second level. That's point number one. The second thing that is key to being aggressive is you want to speed everything up. So if you're a triple option team, what you want to do is you want to be able to stick that ride, and you want to ride it all the way out, right? And then if you're going to pull, you want to get outside. You want to carry that option as quickly outside as possible. You want to get to the perimeter, and then you want to pitch late on the perimeter, and you want to pitch off a DB, right? Because if you're pitching off a DB, a lot of times There's nobody else out there. That's what a triple option team wants to do. They want to really carry those things out. So for you as a defense, you have to be the opposite. You have to speed everything up. And so if he's going to give on to the fullback, you need to attack it hard, and you need to make him give to the fullback right now, and then everybody can rally to the ball. And a lot of the things they'll do are going to look like triple option, but they're actually fullback dives. So the harder and the more aggressive you are attacking the fullback, the better it's going to be for your defense. Really, because then you're just hammering them, you're getting to them. That's why disruption is so important, because a lot of times what works for Navy is they're just kind of that fullback just gets behind the offensive lineman and you tackle him and he just gets tackled for a 5-yard gain, but he's never got past the offensive lineman. So you have to be able to be disruptive in that regards. Keep them at the line of scrimmage as much as possible. The other aspect of it too is you want to have them pitch the ball and declare as quickly as possible. And look, the teams that have been really good at stopping like the really up-tempo spreads that run the ball. So like Chip Kelly back in the day, it's a very similar philosophy. And that's something that Stanford did a great job of. Stanford, back when they played Oregon, when they would have success against Oregon, they'd be really aggressive, really attacking, and you force them to make their read and get going as quickly as possible. And so then what that does is that forces them to declare this is where the ball's going, and then you can rally. It's the same thing against the triple option. So when you're playing the triple option, the faster you can force the quarterback to either hand off or pull, and the faster you can get him to pitch, then the further behind the line he is with the ball, and the faster you can recognize and rally to the football as a defense. So that's why I love aggressive defenses. I hate now occasionally you want to kind of mix it up. You want to, if you're speeding up the quarterback's timing mechanism and he's rushing everything, then occasionally, you may string it out, and that's how you can create a big play. But your philosophy overall has to be to really attack it and really be aggressive with it. And I think that is an absolute key to defending the triple option and being disruptive. And part of that is one of my other keys is, and it's you have to win on early downs. And that means getting Navy off schedule. There is not an offense in the country that has a harder time with with being off schedule than the triple option. This is an offense that likes to go for it on fourth down. This is an offense that wants to get you in as many third and shorts as possible. That's how they run the clock out. If you can create negatives on first and second down, get them in third and longs, and take them out of their game. Now they're still going to run the option on third and long, but they'll also at times need to pass. But this is an offense that to me has been not good at limiting those disruptives. And when they are struggling as an offense, a lot of times it's because of that. So, for example, Navy this year ranks 113th in tackles for loss allowed. And a big part of that is because they also rank 117th in sacks allowed. Their quarterback, let me pull up his specific passing numbers, the offense's passing numbers. They've attempted 72 passes this year in 8 games. They've given up 25 sacks. Navy's allowed their quarterback to get sacked 25 times. That's a ton. That's a ton, especially when you consider how infrequently they pass the football. So this is an offense that's been prone to giving up a lot of those negatives. Now, it hasn't been as bad in recent games, and that's kind of something that's, last couple games that's allowed them to be better. But when Cincinnati had success against them, when Tulsa had any success against them, it was creating negatives. And that's something that helped Cincinnati really slow that offense down late, is because early on, they were gashing Cincinnati. As the game got further and further, Cincinnati started getting more and more negatives, and that's when you saw Navy have less success with that. So if you can create negatives, you're going to be successful. They did that against Cincinnati. Kept them under 200 yards. Tulsa did not do that. Tulsa had 2 tackles for loss for -4 yards, and that's why Navy went over 300 on them, and that's why Navy ended up beating them. So really winning on early downs, creating negatives, creating disruptives, that getting them into more pass-heavy situations is a way to obviously have a lot of success against Navy. Another big part of this is handling cut blocks. Now, rule changes in recent seasons have made it a little harder for Navy to cut the way they have in the past, especially on the perimeter, but they're still going to cut block. And you have to have a plan for that. You have to work on it all week. Mike Elston has been really good about that in recent seasons as he's seen it more and more and more. It's a lot about technique. It's about coming off hard, but having your hands ready to fight, whether it's to engage right away or whether it's to push it down. So I think those are things that I like to see. You have to handle the cut blocks are things that I like. So we have a question here from Andrew Goss. You're supposed to string out the outside option. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that works. I think if you string it out, then what happens is it's like an outside zone play. The more you string it out, the more creases you create in the run lanes, the things that you can do. What I like to do and what I think the best success that teams have had in the past, I mean, for the last 20 years that I've been covering the triple option, teams that have had the best success at consistently stopping the triple option are teams that attack it. When you watch when triple option teams play each other, they don't string it out, they attack it. And they're really aggressive. And that's why a lot of times those triple option teams will have their worst rushing games against each other. And so to me, that's why I look at it and say you have to be aggressive and you have to attack it. Now, you don't want to get out leveraged. That's a big thing. And that's my next key is don't get out leveraged. You cannot get out leveraged against Navy. Now, what Navy is going to do is they're going to use a lot of different formations and motions to try to get you out leveraged. Out leverage essentially means what Navy wants to do is they want to get your edge players and your alley players. So like your rover, if your safety comes down, your will linebacker, your viper, they want to get blockers outside of them to down block. So they're going to try to pin Isaiah Foskey and pin Myron Tungavaloa. They're going to try to pin the outside linebacker, whoever that may be. They're going to try to pin you down and then get outside of you with their option, with their pitch, and with their passes. And so if you allow them to out leverage you to the outside, then you're going to have some problems. And that's something that Navy likes to do. And I think one of the misconceptions that people have about a triple option offense is that it's always the triple option. There are times you will break Navy down. And if you really understand their offense, you'll look at it and say, they probably only ran triple option 20% of the snaps, like a pure triple option they were reading out. Now it looks like they're running a lot of triple option. But in reality, it's just a dive, or it's the dive is nothing more than a fake. And at times it'll look like it's a triple option, but it's really a quarterback run. So you have to really be prepared. But I think that when you look at how to defend it is if you can handle leverage without then being so afraid of being out leveraged that you just let them gash you right up the middle with the fullback and the quarterback, I think that's a key to being successful. So part of it also is properly playing blocks. You cannot go under blocks if you're on the perimeter. If you go under blocks, they will get outside of you and they will get big plays. And then to me, the final key, because again, I talked about key number 6 with the first one, which is attack it. The final one is to control the middle of the line of scrimmage. If you can control the middle of the line, then you're going to slow Navy down, because at the end of the day, the two keys to their offense are the quarterback and the fullback. Those are the two weapons. When their fullback really gets rolling, that's when they have success. And if you're a defense, that's one of the kind of things that you have to be able to take away. If you can take the fullback away and make the fullback less productive, you have a great chance at slowing down the triple option. And we've seen that in past years when Notre Dame has gotten beat by the triple option. A lot of times it's because they gash them with the fullback. It's not Keenan Reynolds. It's not, it wasn't Ricky Dobbs. It wasn't Malcolm Perry. It was the fullback. And if you don't stop the fullback, you're going to have a tougher time. Cincinnati did a bad job of stopping the fullback, and UCF did a bad job of stopping the fullback. Notre Dame can't allow that to happen. So they have to be able to, and that comes down to controlling the middle line of scrimmage. If you beat their guards and center all game long, the triple option offense, the Navy offense will not work. And that's going to be a big key to the Notre Dame defense stopping the Navy offense. And of course, there's the keys that are every game, right? Be disciplined, right? Don't give up big plays. I've seen Navy run a flea flicker this year. They ran a flea flicker. I think it was SMU. They ran a flea flicker. I handed fullback dive and flea. I don't know if I've ever seen Navy run a flea flicker. They're going to run reverses. They're going to run all types of things. And it was successful against Cincinnati because Cincinnati played a lot of man. I think this is a game where maybe you might want to play more zone on the back end to not allow them to get you running and then bring something behind it. But you obviously have to be disciplined, but that's true of every game. Discipline isn't, it's, and I talked earlier about being disciplined within the context of the defense. This is your job, but there's also the discipline of being able to read out plays and not over pursue and not take bad angles and have good technique and those type of things. That's a different type of discipline that is also important, but that's more important in every game. That's important in every game. And so it's really no different this week. Before we move on to the keys for the Notre Dame offense against the Navy defense, we do have a super chat from Alberto. Hola, amigo. Is this your second Euro super chat? Keep up the great work. Here's hoping to no injuries. It is the second super chat, although we've only had one person do it, and that would be you. So we certainly appreciate that. We appreciate you being part of our show. And I believe you said you are from Spain. So we've got Notre Dame fans all over the country. So we appreciate you very, very much. So let's get into the keys to success for the Notre Dame offense. And I got them written down here. To me, it's first of all, one of the greatest assets for the Notre Dame defense is when its offense comes out and scores early. When you look at the Notre Dame Navy game in 2019, that was one of the best Navy teams that Notre Dame has played since Brian Kelly took over. And Notre Dame absolutely dominated Navy that day. That was an 11-win Navy team, and Notre Dame jumped all over them and blew them out 52-20, and it wasn't that close. Navy scored the last three times. It was 50. It was at one point in time, it was 45-10. Notre Dame had it was 45-3 at one point in time. And then Navy poured on some points in the second half. Scored 7 in the third, 10 in the fourth in like garbage time. And then, of course, Notre Dame had their final score was Paul Moala picking up, basically intercepting a pitch and taking it back to the house. But the reason why is Notre Dame jumped on Nate early. First drive of the game, 2 plays, 73 yards. Second drive of the game, first scoring drive of the game for Notre Dame went 11 plays, 75 yards. First drive, Notre Dame goes down and scores. Navy goes on a long drive of their own, takes 6 minutes. Notre Dame, I think it was Khalid Kareem, forces a fumble. Notre Dame gets it, 2 plays, 75-yard touchdown. Navy gets the ball again. Notre Dame forces a turnover, 4 plays, 39 yards, 21-0. Game is over at that point in time. Quick 3 and out. They get the ball back, post route to Braden Lindsey, 28-0 in the second quarter. I mean, it was over because at that point in time, Navy was completely out of what they wanted to do. Now, if they want to go on a 12-play drive that takes 8 minutes off the clock, fine. I don't care. You're up 28-0. You're up 21-0 or 24-0. Those are the keys. So you have to score early. You have to score often. That puts Navy in a serious bind. They want a low-scoring, control the clock kind of game. That's what Navy wants to do. And so offensively, you have to come out and you have to be aggressive, but you also have to be controlled. And that's another part of this too is, one of the things they want to do is Navy wants to try to get you into playing their game. They want you to play ball control. They're going to give you certain things. And on early downs, those things are important. Hey, look, take a 1st and 10 6-yard hitch route on an RPO or a 5-yard outcut if they're giving that to you, because eventually someone's going to make a play, right? Somebody's going to make somebody miss and make a play, but it's just take those things. But at the same time, it's going to be imperative that Tommy Rees also find ways to create big plays. And that's something Chip Long did a great job of in 2019. You had one of the best calls he made that year. Put Chase Claypool in the slot. You get Navy kind of playing in their zone, and you just attack him right down the seam with Chase Claypool for a touchdown. And that was a huge game from Chase Claypool. Then later you get Braden Lindsey over the top on a post route for a touchdown. So there are things you can do schematically with screens. There's things you can do with your quick game, but there's things you can do with deep shots, and there's things you can do in the running game to create big plays. Notre Dame's going to have to try to create some big plays, but not forcing big plays down the throat. And I think that's something that Cincinnati struggled with. Is Cincinnati was always looking to kind of hit big plays, and that allowed the pressures that Navy likes to bring to kind of rattle Desmond Ridder, because it was all a lot of just deep shots, and then he tried to force downfield throws, and that got him in trouble, and he was off target a lot in that game. So Jack Cohn has to be sharp. If you get those opportunities over the middle of the field, you got to hit them, hit the seams, hit the crossing routes, hit the backside seam. Those shots are going to be there. Take them. If there's a deep shot, you just let it rip. Throw it as far as you can. Let your receivers run underneath it. I think that's going to be a big part of this game as well. So there are going to be opportunities for big plays, and you've got to hit those big plays. So win up front is going to be key. Navy's undersized. You have to push them off the ball. If you can't push Navy off the ball, you've got a big, big problem on offense. And then the other thing too is just be smart and don't turn the ball over. The last thing you need to do against Navy is have dumb things that give them the ball. Fumbles, interceptions, drop passes on third down, second down, or in any down that then lead to punts and things like that. Those are the kind of mistakes that'll get you beat. And those are the kind of things that Notre Dame has to completely avoid. If they can do that, this offense should score a lot on Navy. Cincinnati's not a great offense. I've been saying it all year. They're just not. Notre Dame made them look better than they are. They had plenty of chances to score more. They had drop passes. They had just dumb penalties. They had, turning guys loose. Desmond Ridder missing open receivers. It was a sloppy, sloppy game, and they still scored 27 points on Navy and came back to win despite really playing poor football in that game, which just kind of shows it's Navy's not a real good team. You can play a really bad game and still beat them. And people talk about it was a competitive game. It was in the first half. The second half, Cincinnati controlled that game pretty easily. They had, I think it was 27-13. Navy scored late, and that's kind of what made it a little closer game than it seemed. But and Cincinnati didn't play bad. They had 271 yards of offense. Just really had a bad game. Notre Dame needs to be better than that, and they can be better than that. But you have to have a good game plan, and you have to execute it. That requires the quarterback to be smart, be accurate, and it requires the offensive line to be on top of their game. All right, so that's prediction time. So Vince obviously could not be here, but he texted me his prediction score. He went 49-17. Vince is predicting a blowout. I could certainly see that. I would love to see Notre Dame win by that kind of score. I'm going 38-20. The reason I'm going 38-20 is just because what we've seen from the defense this year is when they get a lead, they get passive. They allow opponents to go on long drives and get cheap points that make it look like they gave up more points than they really did and what the game could have been competitive. I hope we don't see that in this game. I hope that we see an aggressive attacking game plan. I hope Notre Dame goes after Navy on defense. I hope that they just bury them, but we've just seen them give up a lot of cheap points, and I don't like it, but it's part of the deal. So I'm going 38-20 right now. I would like to see a more convincing win, but we just haven't seen Notre Dame do that a whole lot. So hopefully they can prove me wrong a little bit on Saturday and be more aggressive offensively, execute better offensively, play well up front, and defensively be disciplined, tackle well, something they have not done a good job of. Really, they haven't been a good tackling team for the last 3 years, if we're being honest. And this year, obviously, they've had some bouts where they've been pretty bad at it. Probably the worst tackling that we've seen from them since probably 2019. They were a really bad tackling team in 2019 too. So hopefully that improves, and this is a game where it has to improve. If it does, and Notre Dame plays disciplined and aggressive and do the things that I hope they'll do, they could certainly blow Navy out the way that Vince has it. And I would like to see that. I think it's a must if Notre Dame is going to impress the playoff committee. But I'm just going to be a little bit more reserved because every time I predict Notre Dame to blow a team out, it seems like they have a struggle. So I'm going to try use a little reverse psychology this week and predict a little bit more competitive game than what we've seen. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of these questions here as we wrap up these next 20 minutes or so. I want to get down to what everybody has to say. So Q Kibbs 97 under over 12 snaps for Buckner this week. Really hope some of those are empty sets, even though it didn't work last week when they motioned out Kyron to get. I liked last week when they motioned out Kyron to give Tyler the empty set. I mean, it just depends on what they're going to do. I think the problem with an empty set against Navy with Tyler Buckner quarterback is it's a big boom or bust type of situation. if you go empty and they bring one of their pressures, either he's going to get hit for a loss or you're going to be able to gash him. And I don't know if I would want to put a freshman in that type of situation. Over under, boy, I think I'm probably go over just because the staff really wants to get him in the game. But this is a game that I get a little nervous putting a kid like Tyler Buckner in the game because Navy does so much exotic stuff on defense. I'd be worried about him kind of making a mistake. So I don't know if this would be a game early on. I would necessarily want to see him a ton, but it's also a game where if he handles all those things well mentally, he's the kind of athlete that can really make Navy pay for being aggressive. So, I could see him stepping into a sack. I could see him not reading one of their zone drops and just throwing a quick pass into the arms of a Navy player. I could also see if Tyler kind of picks it up and has a good feel for what they're doing and what they're showing, he could step away from a sack and there's this huge running lane that he can go exploit. So there's also the opportunities for that. So it makes me a little bit nervous, but it's really just about whether or not he's going to be able to execute. Timeout, Tom. Anyone else notice that Rivals dropped Bowen's ranking? That would be Drake Bowen, who committed to Notre Dame last night. Rivals dropped Bowen's ranking when the crystal baller started going up for Notre Dame, or am I looking for a conspiracy theory? I think you're looking for a conspiracy theory, but it doesn't mean that your theory is necessarily wrong. Rivals is notorious for dropping Notre Dame recruits. Obviously, Drake Bowen was 16th. He dropped down to 22. He was 16 when the first ranking came out in March. He dropped down to 22 in August. I mean, for me, I don't really care what Rivals does. I don't. Of the ranking services, they're up there with ESPN in my opinion for the most part. I just don't put a lot of stock in it. But look, they still have him ranked number 22. It's not like they dropped him out of the top 100. He's still ranked number 22. He's actually ranked higher by Rivals as just an individual player than he is by anybody else. So if we're going to be fair about it, we have to be, we can talk about how Rivals is notorious for dropping players, but at the same time, if we're going to do that, we also have to talk about the fact that he's still ranked higher by Rivals than he is by anybody else. I'm pulling up his rankings now. I think ESPN has him in the 40s. 247 Sports has him in the 40s. ESPN has him at 44, and 247 has him at 48. Now, the composite ESPN has him at number 28 and is the number a 5-star. So, but that's, again, because of Rivals. So, yeah, Rivals dropped him. Do I think it's because he was going to commit to Notre Dame? I don't know. I don't know if they're potentially. It wouldn't shock me, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Usually when a guy drops only 6 spots this early in the process, it's usually because somebody they didn't know a lot about before jumped way up. So part of it too is like they jumped up. Sonny Styles jumped ahead of Drake Bowen. Well, if they're smart, then they would understand that Notre Dame has a pretty good shot at getting Sonny Styles. They jumped Deuce Robinson and TJ Shanahan and Justice Haynes ahead of him. And those are guys that Notre Dame is in on it as well. And they did move Brendan Vernon up a spot in their last rankings from 9 to 8. So we'll see how they handle that one. So, but they're pretty notorious for dropping Notre Dame players. And I could share some stories with you that would make your skin crawl a little bit about some things that I was told and learned and things like that during my time and when I was affiliated with Rivals. But this is not the format for that. But he's still ranked pretty high. And at the end of the day, none of y'all should care much about where he's ranked. Okay. I mean, Notre Dame's had 3 Butkus Award winners at linebacker. First 2 of them were 5 stars. The third one was a 3-star that Notre Dame beat Virginia and Michigan State for. So if a guy can play, he can play. Let's see here. I get to some more here. Anthony Solomon says, great get yesterday, talking about Drake Bowen. Freeman factor on display. Saw an ISD interview with Drake Bowen, and he grew up an Alabama fan. He said he camped there and they didn't offer. I appreciate Saban for not offering. So this goes into what I said last night during our show and what I've said for a while at Irish Breakdown is this was not he is a lock for Notre Dame thing. And if there's anybody out there telling you that he was a lock for Notre Dame longer than the last 2 weeks, they're either not being honest with you or are not tied in on this recruitment at all. This is a kid that Notre Dame had to go beat other schools for. This was not a lot. This is not your typical in-state thing, and this is what I've been telling people for a long time. And the reason that needs to be understood is you need to understand that this is not your typical in-state commitment. They had to put in work to get this kid, and they did a great job. Did a great job for it. Let's get down here to some more. I will pass these get well wishes along to Vince for sure. I appreciate everybody sending those kind words to him. Tommy, I'll send your suggestion as well. In Irishman 7114, did Vince get put in solitary for bad behavior? Nope. Vince is not in solitary. He's actually in the good studio today, but he just doesn't feel well. And so I told him to take the day off because he's just, he didn't go to work today, and Vince doesn't not go to work very often. So that should tell you how he's feeling. But he'll be back with us tomorrow, hopefully. We'll see there. So got some Anthony L. IB Nation. Appreciate y'all. Get well, Vince. Anthony Solomon, CFP committee is a joke. They apply their standards to teams differently to fit an agenda. In the past, I would have disagreed with you, Anthony. I would have. In the past, I have defended this committee over and over again. I think they've done a really good job, a really fair job. I think at times they have sort of ranked teams at the bottom to sort of justify who they had at the top, but it was a righteous justification, in my opinion. I don't know what they're doing this year. And again, it's all new people on it. There's a lot of turnover this year. Ty Willingham is part of it. Makes me a little nervous. I don't know how. I mean, he didn't pay much attention to his teams when he was actually coaching them. I can only imagine how much football he's watching now that he's not even coaching. So that kind of concerns me a little bit, but it was problematic. But if you're Notre Dame, can be a good thing. The reason I say that is a committee making bad decisions may look at Notre Dame's resume and say, yeah, we know they lost to Cincinnati, but they're better than Cincinnati. Cincinnati's in the AAC. The AAC sucks. Notre Dame had a bad day. Notre Dame should be ranked higher. I can see it. Okay. Rob Didoff says, Brian, I have the highest respect for Navy and all they did for Notre Dame in the early days. However, do you like myself, rather this game be every 4 to 5 years instead? This game always gives us injuries. Number one, this game does not always give Notre Dame injuries. Notre Dame has injuries every game, and it's almost, I don't know if we have games go by the guys don't get injured. Number two, no, I do not agree with you on that, Rob. The reality is does there come a time when someone saves your life, does there come a time when you're not grateful to them, you're not thankful to them? The reality is I don't know if Notre Dame exists as an institution right now if it wasn't for the Naval Academy. We have a story on our front site, on our front page at irishbreakdown.com. I would encourage you all to read who don't really know the full story. It was very well done by Andrew McDonough, who wrote the Notre Dame and the Big Ten pieces back this summer. Really, really good research. Notre Dame student. And he was someone who had said to me that, he was all for not playing that series until he went to Notre Dame and then got a full idea of what that rivalry was all about. But no, I will play Navy. If it was up to me, I would play Navy every year as long as Navy wants to play us. If Navy doesn't want to play us anymore, if I'm at Notre Dame and I'm making that decision, then I would understand that. But for me, for what Navy did, I mean, for my appreciation and respect for the military and what those kids go through every day, plus what they did for Notre Dame back in the day, those things don't go away, because you can't look at who you are now and what you're trying to accomplish and say, well, Navy's a hindrance to that, when they're part of the reason you're even here to begin with. That's how I look at it. And again, other people look at it differently. I understand that, respect that, but my opinion is I will play Navy as long as they want to play Navy, as long as they want to play. Toe Jam 1992. What is the over-under on lower leg injuries from Navy's O-line cut blocking? So again, I would encourage people to go back and look at these last few games. I think that there have been a couple bad injuries. Jerron Jones 1 year, Joe Schmidt, but it's no different than other games. I mean, we've seen Notre Dame defensive linemen down on the field in other games too. I think what happens is because you're looking for it in this game, you see it. And then we'll completely ignore the fact that Jacob Lacey got rolled up on, what was it against Cincinnati, right? I think is who it was. I mean, we've seen Isaiah Foskey down, Jason Adamiel has been banged up. Guys are getting banged up before they start playing Navy. And here's the other thing they do. They cut block. They cut block. You watch film of them cut blocking. There are ways to defend cut blocks. Defend it, right? I mean, that's the key. Do a better job of beating it. Bill Koshrup, I hate this week on the schedule. I was birthed as a Notre Dame fan and graduated from the Naval Academy in 1986. I tell people who ask that I cheer for the team wearing blue and gold. That's really well done, Bill. Very, very well done because, yeah, you can't lose. If you say you're rooting for the team in blue and gold in this particular matchup, you can't lose. Anthony Solomon says, as a Navy veteran, I will always respect them for what they have committed to doing after graduation. As a Notre Dame fan, I hate this game because it's a no-win situation for Notre Dame. It usually is. I'll agree with that. But there have been let's be honest about something. Brian Kelly has led Notre Dame to 10-win seasons in 20, 19, 18, 17, 15, right? Previous 5 years. In 2 of those 5 years, Notre Dame's only win over a ranked opponent was Navy. In 2015, the only team that Notre Dame beat that finished the season ranked was Navy. In 2019, the only team Notre Dame beat that finished the season ranked was Navy. So I think there have been years where beating Navy was a resume builder to a certain degree. Let me get down here some more questions here. Anthony Solomon says, late third quarter, up 2 scores. BK will go into full conservative mode. He will be in partial conservative mode beginning in the first quarter. I sure hope you're wrong. John Erickson picking the upset. Defense fails to address issues such as tackling and gap integrity, leading to Navy dominating time of possession. Navy 28, Notre Dame 21. That would be pretty miserable. Toe Jam also asked, would we rather play a 2-loss Michigan team or get a rematch against an undefeated Cincinnati in our bowl game this year? I'm thinking I want another shot at Cincinnati. I think both of those are wins for Notre Dame. I think Cincinnati's a team that if Notre Dame were to get them in a rematch would give them a perception bonus, I think. I think looking at Michigan, obviously playing and beating Michigan would be good. I would love a rematch against Cincinnati for a lot of reasons. Absolutely. Terry Washburn says, I was stationed in Pearl, small ship. Most of the middies I encountered were trying real hard to be authoritative, but weren't very good at it. All right. Toe Jam, Paige and Greer Martini, please report to the Notre Dame linebacker room to impart your knowledge on how to blow up the triple option. Let's not forget that Greer Martini was simply executing the game plan that they put together. That's ultimately the key. I think Drew White has experience playing Navy. That'll be a good thing. I think that one thing that's interesting about this matchup is there's a lot of players on this team who haven't played against Navy on defense because they didn't play them last year. So I am curious how that's going to be. I don't know that Isaiah Foskey played a whole lot against Navy in 2019. I'd have to go back and watch that game. He did late when it was a blowout, but not early. So be very curious how that plays out. But Marcus Freeman has coached against the triple option twice. He coached against Army last year. And I've given these numbers before. I'll give them again. They shut Army down last year and shut Navy down. Let me pull up Cincinnati's numbers here real quick. So rushing defense last year, they beat Army 24-10 and held Army to 182 yards on 43 carries. That's 4.2 per carry. For context, Army last year rushed for 273 yards per game. So they held them about 90 yards below their season average. They played Navy in 2018. Navy that season was not a great team, but still rushed for over 200 yards per game. Let me pull up Navy's numbers here real quick. rushing offense in 2018. Navy was at 276.5 yards per game. Cincinnati beat them 42-0, and they held Navy to 124 yards and 2.4 yards per carry. So they held them about 150 yards below their season average. About 150 was, I say 124? Yeah, a little over 150 yards per game and over 2 yards below their season average. So that's a very good performance in both instances. That answers this question right here. Anthony Solomon, over under on trick plays Coach Ken calls against Notre Dame on Saturday. I'm setting the over under at 4. I'm gonna take the over. But part of that depends on, is Notre Dame successful early on. If Notre Dame is successful shutting the defense down, then they'll have to go to the trick plays. If they're just gashing Notre Dame all game, then they don't have to do that, except when they want to create a big play, which if they're successful just moving the chains, they don't want a big play, because the big play is going to score quicker, and that means Notre Dame's offense gets back on the field. James says Notre Dame has to play a 4-3-4 defense. If Notre Dame plays 3-4-4 defense, it's going to be a long day for Notre Dame. Strongly disagree with that, James. I have said this 1,000 times. I will say it 1,000 times again. The structure of what you play, unless you play a 3-3 stack, which I think is the only defense I don't think works. We have seen Notre Dame do 3-down defenses against Navy that dominated Navy. We have seen Notre Dame do 4-down defenses against Navy that have stunk. It's not about the 3-down or the 4-down. There are advantages to being a 3-down against Navy. What that allows you to do is allows you to be more multiple with how you use your 5 techniques. It allows you to crash your linebackers more. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can kind of widen things out, and you can collapse on the fullback, and it prevents you from getting out leveraged as easily in some other instances. So there's plenty of things you can do out of a 3-down front that are just as good as you can do out of a 4-down front. It just depends on how you use it. And if anything, a 3-down front allows Notre Dame to be a little bit more diverse, which is one of my number one keys to attacking it. So I know people just are kind of anti 3-down in anything right now, but a 3-down defense can be very effective against the triple option, depending on how you use it. It can also be terrible against triple option. It's not the alignment. It's how you call and execute that look. And it's like with anything else. There's not one great defense that stops a triple option. Teams got to do a lot of different things. It's just about, can you execute it? Do you have assignment accountability for all the different things? Are guys playing aggressively, or are they executing? Those are going to be the things that are going to be important to defend this. I'm fine if people want to say, hey, I like 4-down better, I like 3-down better. That's a totally fair conversation. What I think we need to kind of avoid is to act as if one is better than the other, right? I don't like that Notre Dame does as much 3-down as they want, but the evaluation needs to be is whether it worked or not whether or not, in theory, this particular thing, I don't like it, so I'm going to always find negatives. Like, there's a lot of people that were criticizing the defense against USC, despite the fact they held USC to their lowest point total in over 2 years, because they don't personally like how they did it. It's one thing to like how you do it. It's another thing to look at it and say, okay, I don't like that. That's not what I would do, but it worked. And at the end of the day, that's the important thing. Mike McDonald says cut blocks is why it's best Kyle Hamilton not play. I agree. And it's especially damaging for Kyle because he's so tall, he's so long. And I think that's something that to me is a little concerning for him, because he's so long. He's just got a lot more that they can get to, and it can be a lot more damaging, in my opinion. Adario Jones, I appreciate the super chat very, very much. As a diehard Notre Dame fan living in Annapolis, I have to root against my hometown team this weekend. I look forward to your shows. Keep up the great work. P.S. I'm almost official now that I have my Gap Closer hoodie. That's what I'm talking about. I love it. We got our Gap Closer hoodies on the site. So we've had several people ordering this week. It's getting to that time of the year. We have Gap Closer beanies. We have some Gap. I just put on a Gap Closer long sleeve shirt that somebody had asked for and bought. Anthony L. So thank you for that. I appreciate that very, very much. Appreciate the super chat and appreciate you buying the gear. So we definitely still have that. You can go to boards.irishbreakdown.com and you'll see IB Shop at the top. That's the easiest way to get there. And of course, while you're there, you might as well sign up for the message board. Here we go. Tommy Guns has his prediction. I have mine already. 50-10, reminiscent of 2010. I like it. I like it. Let's get back up here to get to some more of these. Starting to see some JP Buellsfeld. JP, my man, Notre Dame 35, Navy 10. JP, I also just saw your email today. I'm going to respond here this afternoon. I appreciate you reaching out. I'll definitely be in touch with you here soon. Tommy Guns, I can see Foskey using his wingspan and intercepting a pitch for 6. That'd be fun to watch. John Long, any chance we see Bauer and Bertrand at the same time? I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I think we're going to see a lot of Drew White. Drew White has been good against the triple option the 2 times he played. Remember, he came off the bench in 2018 for Drew Tranquil, who got hurt in that game. And then he obviously played. He was part of the defensive game plan against Navy in 2019 when they beat Navy 52-20. So Drew is obviously a player that has some experience and success against Navy. I'm looking up what his numbers were against Navy. He had 10 tackles, 6 solos against Navy in 2010, and that was a very, very good Navy team. So Drew obviously has a success. He had a quarterback hurry in that game as well. He's had some success. I'd like to see him play in the game, obviously, as well. Garen Knutson, I'm a huge Bauer fan. I think my neighbors heard me when he got that pick. Does he have a chance at the next level, possibly on special teams? I could see him having a chance. I mean, obviously, he won't get drafted if he doesn't start at Notre Dame. But I think that he's definitely a guy that, because he's an athletic kid, he's a good football player. He's got some assignment, consistency. He's got to be more assignment correct consistently to be more of a regular player. But he's going to have a chance to, if he comes back next year, he'll have a chance to battle for a starting job. And that's going to be the thing that can maybe vault him into draftability. But most likely he's a guy that's going to have to catch on a team. But he's a great special teams player. So I could definitely see a team wanting to take a chance on him, give him a camp tryout and see if he's able to make it. Absolutely. James says Key will be DN play for blowout 41-10. John Long says Jack Cohn has to stay in rhythm. Can't keep pulling him for Buckner. Limited opportunities equals out of sync offense. I think as long as they do it like they've been doing it, where it's like 1 play and then 2 plays you go back in, I think that's worked. I think that works pretty well. Searcher Green, Notre Dame 31-17. That's his prediction. Timeout Tom, 52-20 in favor of the Irish. Kenny Moore, 40-20. Notre Dame wins. There we go. John Long says not saying 49 until they do it. I'm with you on that. Would expect high 30s to middle teens, 33-16. I like this, Rob. Notre Dame 56-21 over Navy. Dig that. Mike Padone, him and Vince have the same score. I like that. 49-17 in favor of Notre Dame. I think that's the kind of game that Notre Dame would really need to springboard them into a strong finish to the second half of the season. Scott Yerbick, Notre Dame 41-21. Prediction hoping for a big blowout. You and me both, my friend. Alberto, Notre Dame 34, Navy 13. Martin Demo, Notre Dame 35-20 advantage. Scott Yerbick says, do you think we will see Chris Tyree this week? I believe we will. I'm all about this hashtag Thomas Lammers, hashtag free Rocco. I am down with that. Okay. Gavin Lee, Notre Dame 56-6. Go Irish. I like that. Sean Mattingly has Notre Dame winning 35-17. Kenny Moore says, I don't even use rivals anymore. Smart man. John Long, also smart man. Now me either, Kenny. I use BD. My man. Okay. Thomas Lammers, next tailgate, we can talk rivals. Oh, yes, that would be a much better setting for me to share my opinion on them. Absolutely. Timeout Tom, my biggest concern against Navy is injuries. That's always my biggest concern as well. Always my biggest concern as well. Sean Mattingly, Xavier Nwakpa needs to be the next one we work for work for a way to find. We work for a. I'm trying to say this. Nwakpa needs to be the next one We work for find a way to get it. Okay. I'm sorry, Sean. I tried. I butchered that. I apologize. But yeah, I look, I like, I've said this for a while. I like where Notre Dame is with Nwangpa. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I'm not optimistic because so and so is reporting." I can only tell you what I hear, and with what I hear from my sources, I feel good. I feel good about that. Okay, let's see down here. JP Buellsfeld, thank you for Irish Breakdown. Notre Dame 35 and Navy 10. Appreciate you very, very much, JP. Irish for life. This game must be a blowout. Reverse psychology prediction. Notre Dame 27-23. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Let's get down here. Sean Mattingly, do you think we will see Gabe Rubio or Prince Collie or any of the younger guys this week? If they blow them out, sure. We won't otherwise, I don't think. We'll see Prince on special teams, but that's about it. Let's see here. Tommy Gunn says, God bless our glorified Ubers, future devil dogs amongst the future seamen. Semper Fi, and thank you for your selfless dedication and sacrifice to defend our ideals as a free people. USA. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Gets it down here to some more. Blaine Tiller says we need Vince for the home game Friday. Go caveman and get well, Vince. So what this means is, so what Blaine is referring to, Vince does Vince does color with Sean Stiers, who does the play-by-play for Friday night Mishawaka high school games, and so that's two very strong voices. I have listened to them before. They do a really, really great job. But yes, I talked to Vince about that today. That's definitely something he plans to do. So thank you for that, Blaine. We got some more here. Sean Mattingly. Notre Dame is a top football team. They have the recruits to compete with the best SEC teams and beat the average teams. Let's not get that twisted. I dig it. All righty. Got a little debate going on here about the SEC. Carl Bramer, 45-12 for the Irish. Joseph Salvatore, 41-21 for Notre Dame. They seem to like landing in that 34-41 range. I agree. Joseph Salvatore, anything above 41 would be awesome. Antoine Porcher Rideau, 55-7 Notre Dame. Notre Dame scores touchdowns on their first three possessions, forces Navy to pass. And if that happens, it's not going to end well for Navy. All right. And Carl has upped the ante for Notre Dame. He's now going 46-12 in favor of Notre Dame. I like the hashtag Free Rocco. We got another one down here. Let's see here. Nicholas Grosh, hope we can get number 10, Drew Pine, in the game without injuries to Cohn and Buckner. 45-14 Notre Dame. I think that would do it. RJG Irving, BK won't allow a blowout. Notre Dame 37, Navy 17. Well, he's allowed a couple blowouts of Navy. We saw a blowout of Navy I'm trying to pull up Serious History. Obviously, we had one in 2019. Notre Dame was up 45-3 at one point in time. We saw a blowout in 2012, obviously, of 50-10. Notre Dame also beat Navy 56-14 in 2011, and beat Navy 44-24 in 2018 in a game that wasn't very close. That was the game that was out in San Diego. Omar Austin, Notre Dame 61, Navy 10. I would love that one, Omar. Absolutely love that one. Would be all about that. Searcher Green, if we aren't seeing Prince on D this season, what are the chances we see any of the incoming LBs next season? We'll see several of the linebackers next season. It's no question. We'll definitely see them. Terry Washburn, Notre Dame 41, Navy 17. Irish for Life says amen to that, Tommy Guns. Never forget the sacrifice paid by our soldiers, sailors, etc. All righty. Carl Bramer says, I'm shocked you actually said my last name right. I get lucky every now and then. I get lucky every now and then. So I'm glad I didn't butcher it. Hunter Land, I really want to see 50 to 60 point games, score that and hold Navy under 20. That would go a long way for the college football playoff committee. I absolutely agree. G baby, I think Zoe Styles will make the biggest plays this game. Notre Dame 52, Navy 13. Toe Jam, which position group will see the most playing time down the depth chart? It's a good one. Well, it won't be receiver because they don't have a down the depth chart. I'm hoping that it's defensive line. I'm hoping this is a game like that Notre Dame can just come out and roll, and we can see less Isaiah Foskey, and we can see less Jason Adamiola and Myron Tungavaloa Amosa, and maybe we can see Gabriel Rubio or Aiden Kana, and we can see, Alexander Ahrensberger and Jordan Botelho and Osafa Mensa and those type of guys. And we can take some of the pressure off of and the burden off of some of the older guys. But if this is a close game, it's going to be harder to do that. That's why it's so important that Notre Dame get out to a fast start. Because also, if your offense jumps out to a big start like Notre Dame did in 2019, if you're Mike Elston, you're like, hey, you know what? I feel good. I'm much more comfortable maybe giving Jason a second series off, or maybe giving Foskey a second series off, in a row or something like that. I think certainly something that they could do to get there. Absolutely. JP says, I am very impressed that you can pronounce my name perfectly every time. I have 50-year friends who cannot do that. You clearly can speak German. So, JP, I actually had, when I was in elementary school, my family we had a foreign exchange student. His name was Bjorn, and he was from West Germany. And so obviously, he would talk German and we would have conversations. And he was I grew up, I was the oldest in my family, and all the older people in my family were mostly all girls. So I had cousins and things like that, mostly girls. I didn't never really have like an older brother type of figure, except that year with him. He was great. And then, of course, that kind of got me interested in and those type of things. And so I actually took also 2 years of German in high school at Kempsville High School. So trying to remember what my teacher's name was. Yeah, I can't remember what my teacher's name was, but can remember what he looked like, but I can't remember what his name was. So anyway, let's get down here. Last couple questions. So I appreciate that, JP. Irishman 7114, I think there might be some instances to break out a 4-4 type defense in this game. I think it'd be easier to do that because you could always put Jack Kaiser at Rover and Isaiah Pryor. Like, honestly, that wouldn't be a terrible idea. Like, and we've seen Notre Dame do something like this before, where you kind of have your four down, and then, two inside linebackers. And then you have Isaiah Pryor at one rover spot, and you almost have Jack Kaiser at the other rover spot. So really it'd be like a 4-2-5, but with two rovers, or it'd be a 4-4. And then you have your free safety that's kind of playing the alleys. So he's this run support guy. And then he also would peel with, seams and any wheel routes on the outside as well. Notre Dame has done that before in the past, and it's been successful. It just and look, every year Navy's going to have different strengths and weaknesses that are going to say, hey, we should probably play this year because they're really good up the middle this year. They got great guards and a great center and a really good fullback, so we got to defend it a little differently. Where other years it's hey, look, they're a more dynamic team with the pitch and the option and things like that, and you're going to have to defend that differently. So there are principles every year that are the same when playing Navy: aggressiveness, discipline, controlling the middle of the line, things like that. But how you get there is going to change from year to year, depending on what Navy does. That would be an interesting one. So JP asks, how would you pronounce that? So it depends, JP. If it's an American person who's been in America for generations, the odds are likely that they've changed their name to Wagner. I grew up with Wagner. If it's someone who is German or someone who has recently came from Germany, it's probably going to pronounce Wagner. Michigan had two basketball players from Germany that were their last name was spelled like an American be Wagner, but they were pronounced Wagner. So tried to get me there, JP. I did not fall for it. Sean Hunter, Notre Dame 28-10. And let's get down here for some others. Spartan B88, what upperclassmen receivers do you anticipate coming back next year? I mean, right now, I'm kind of thinking right now that Notre Dame would probably want all of them to come back as of right now. Which ones will come back? Again, I talked about this the other day. I'm not going to really dive too much into who's going to come back or not just yet. Let's let the regular season end. That'll definitely be a good Sunday conversation because, like, I could say, hey, I expect Kevin Austin to come back. He hasn't had a breakout year, but let's say Kevin Austin just for the next 4 games, and then Notre Dame gets into either a playoff game or a New Year's Six game against a big time team, and Kevin Austin just goes like 8 for 120 each of the next 5 games. It may change his outlook on what he's going to do. He may be thinking he's going to leave and he doesn't play well and he comes back. I mean, there's all types of things that could happen. A guy that you anticipate bringing back next year could have a bad semester in the classroom and doesn't get brought back or something. I mean, there's all types of things that could happen. I just want to get through the season. And then when we get into December, we'll have plenty of shows to talk about things without games being played. I'll have a much better feel after talking to people who will or won't come back next year. I don't want to get too much into anticipating that. We talked about certain things during the summer, but now it's about letting the season play out and then kind of forming some opinions from that. So we will get to, so I think Toe Jam 1992, how many snaps and yards for Sebo? I don't know. I mean, right now it looks like Sebo's probably the fourth back. So if you get into a situation where Chris Tyree's healthy, then Sebo's probably your fourth back, and you may not see him as much in this game. If Tyree is not healthy, then we probably will see Sebo. All right, Caleb Collins, 54-12, 2 field goals and blocked extra point. So I think that's a good one to end on. So Caleb, I think that's a good one to end on for sure. So listen, I have, before everybody leaves, I got 2 tickets for Navy. So I bought tickets for this game. I was going to take my wife to this game. It was a game I was looking forward to going to, but she actually is now going to have to be out of town this weekend for something involving the church. So she will not be here. So I have 2 tickets to the Navy game this weekend. So I'm going to do what I did last week. The first person that, if you want to go to the game and you want tickets, the first person that signs up for an annual membership to irishbreakdown.com is going to get 2 free tickets to the game this weekend. So if you're interested in going and you're looking for tickets and you've thought about signing up for the message board anyway, now is a great time to do that because the first person that signs up will get free tickets. So that is a giveaway we have. There's an interesting question down here. Do you sit on Kyron Williams this game? No, you're trying to win the game. You need Kyron Williams to play, and Kyron Williams needs to play against Navy. So I definitely would play him. So anyway, sign up for an annual membership. First person to sign up for an annual membership to irishbreakdown.com will get 2 tickets to the Notre Dame Navy game for this weekend. We'll be back tomorrow for our mailbag podcast. Vince will be back tomorrow. And then, of course, Saturday after the game, we will have our post-game show. Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, we will have our Upon Further Review. And then next week, it is time to talk Virginia. So thanks for being with us today. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, sign up for the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. You'll also find a link to our Irish Breakdown store there. We have hoodies, T-shirts, hats. We have baby clothes now because people have asked for it. We've got blankets, flags, all types of cool stuff there, mugs, all types of cool Irish Breakdown gear there. So check those out. And of course, sign up for the message board. And we would love for you to be a part. We've had some great conversation the last 2 weeks. Every single week, I feel like, man, it's just getting better and better and better. More and more conversation. I have a great article on the front page of irishbreakdown.com written by Andrew McDonough, where he talks about the rivalry of just, he goes into World War II all the way back to the Civil War, of the history of Notre Dame and military service and how World War II period really forged the bond that Notre Dame and Navy have to this day. Very, very well written and very well researched. So it is really, really well done. So appreciate everybody for being a part of what we're doing here. Appreciate everybody that was with us last night. Appreciate everybody that's with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Staff will be back to full health tomorrow, and we will be ready to answer all of your questions. So y'all better come correct tomorrow with any recruiting, team, college football playoff, whatever stuff you all want to talk about. So have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you all again very, very soon.